Calfucurá emerged as one of the most formidable indigenous leaders in South American history during the 19th century, a time when the southern cone was being violently reshaped by expanding nation-states determined to impose borders, laws, and ownership onto lands that had never belonged to them. His name, meaning bluestone, was not simply a title, but a symbol of permanence, endurance, and authority. Born in the Andean world of the Mapuche and Paiwench peoples, Calfucurá was raised within a political culture where leadership was earned through intelligence, courage, and the ability to protect the collective. From an early age, he learned that power did not come from isolation, but from movement, alliance, and control of space. This understanding would later allow him to dominate vast regions of Patagonia and the Pampas without ruling a centralized empire. The world Calfucurá inherited was already under pressure. Spanish colonial authority had collapsed, but independence did not bring freedom for indigenous nations. Instead, the newly formed Argentine Republic sought to expand aggressively, claiming land under the banner of progress and civilization. Indigenous societies were framed as obstacles to national destiny, their existence incompatible with the modern state. Calfucurá understood this shift clearly. He recognized that the threat was no longer a distant empire, but a nearby government determined to erase indigenous autonomy entirely. Unlike leaders who responded with constant warfare, Calfucurá chose a different path. He built power patiently, treating conflict not as an impulse, but as a tool. Calfucurá positioned himself at the center of one of the most important trade and movement corridors in southern South America. The Pampas were not empty grasslands, as Argentine narratives later claimed, but living networks of commerce connecting the Andes to the Atlantic world. Horses, cattle, textiles, weapons, and information flowed across these routes. By controlling them, Calfucurá controlled the economy of the frontier. Settlers depended on access. Other indigenous groups relied on protection and coordination. Even Argentine officials understood that stability on the frontier often depended on Calfucurá's cooperation. This economic power transformed him from a regional leader into a geopolitical force. Rather than ruling through fear alone, Calfucurá built a confederation. Mapuche, Paiwench, and Rancul communities aligned under shared agreements that allowed for coordinated defense and mutual benefit. Leadership within this system was flexible but disciplined, allowing rapid response to threats while preserving local autonomy. Calfucurá acted less like a war chief and more like a head of state, balancing interests, resolving disputes, and maintaining cohesion across enormous distances. His authority did not depend on constant violence. It depended on trust, reputation, and the knowledge that defying him carried consequences. Calfucurá's relationship with the Argentine government was deliberately ambiguous. At times, he presented himself as a stabilizing figure, negotiating treaties, exchanging prisoners, and even cooperating to prevent uncontrolled violence on the frontier. Each agreement bought time, secured resources, and exposed weaknesses within the state. Calfucurá responded with carefully targeted raids, designed to punish encroachment rather than provoke annihilation. These actions were often described by settlers as chaos, but in reality they were calculated demonstrations of power meant to reassert boundaries. The raids associated with Calfucurá were acts of state. They disrupted settlement patterns, forced military withdrawals, and reminded the Argentine state that expansion carried real costs. Entire regions remained effectively inaccessible without Calfucurá's consent. Frontier forts were isolated, supply lines stretched thin, and morale eroded. For decades, Argentine expansion slowed, not because the state lacked ambition, but because it lacked control. Calfucurá's presence created a buffer zone where indigenous sovereignty persisted in defiance of national borders. What made Calfucurá especially dangerous to the Argentine state was his ability to think long-term. He understood that resistance required continuity. He trained successors, reinforced alliances, and ensured that authority did not collapse if he fell. His confederation functioned as a living system rather than a personality cult. Messages traveled faster than armies. Decisions reflected collective strategy rather than impulsive violence. Even as he aged, Calfucurá remained the central axis around which frontier politics revolved. As the 19th century progressed, Argentine ideology hardened. The narrative of civilization versus barbarism framed indigenous existence itself as a threat. Calfucurá understood the danger of this rhetoric. It justified extermination rather than negotiation. Still, he continued to leverage his position, forcing the state to hesitate. His very existence delayed the large-scale military campaigns that would later devastate indigenous populations. That delay saved lives, preserved culture, and maintained autonomy far longer than most resistance movements of the era. Calfucurá died in 1873, and with his death, the balance shifted. The system he built did not collapse immediately, but the Argentine state no longer faced its most skilled strategist. Within a few years, the government launched the brutal campaigns known as the conquest of the desert, deploying overwhelming force to achieve what decades of pressure had failed to accomplish. These campaigns succeeded not because indigenous resistance was weak, but because Calfucurá was gone. His leadership had been the primary obstacle to total domination. Calfucurá's legacy forces a re-examination of indigenous resistance in the Americas. He was not a relic of a pre-modern past. He was a contemporary of nation builders, generals, and presidents, and he outmaneuvered them for decades. He understood treaties as weapons, diplomacy as leverage, and warfare as a last resort rather than a default. His leadership proves that indigenous sovereignty did not disappear with colonialism. It adapteth, evolved, and confronteth modern states on equal terms. Today, Calfucurá stands as one of the last indigenous leaders to command territory on a continental scale. His story reveals that national expansion was neither smooth nor inevitable. It was contested, delayed, and reshaped by leaders who refused to accept erasure. Calfucurá did not seek glory or conquest. That endurance, more than any single victory, defines his greatness. Follow for more history they never taught us in school.